and welcome to another episode of the Bella Grace podcast, where we are helping high achievers break free from mindsets, behaviors, and addictions that are holding them back from reaching their true potential. And this week, we are doing that by talking to my friend Costa. His journey has been shaped by resilience, loss, and deep personal transformation. He knows what it's like to feel stuck, to carry unspoken struggles, and to search for meaning. His passion is creating spaces where men can show up without judgment, break free from old patterns, and step into their true power. For too long, men have been told to suppress and endure, masking silence for strength. But real power comes from self-awareness, authenticity, and the courage to redefine masculinity. So, welcome to the show. And I may have left out, so I left out some of the bio. Okay, but I want you to just dive in, because for those of you who don't know, this is our second time recording because we had technical difficulties last time. And we are just rolling with it, and we are doing it because I have heard your story. I know a little bit about you now, and I know a lot about what you're doing, and I'm excited for everybody else to get to hear it. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got where you are today, your journey along the way, and then what it is that you do? Because I think it's best coming from you.
Thanks, Teresa. Thanks for having me. And we actually very resilient, trying again to record the whole thing and start from scratch. So yes, we're not giving up. Okay, so my story. Where do we start? Do we start when I was a teenager and just sort of feeling off, trying to reconnect with myself and understand what was happening here and here? And so I was living back in Greece. I'm from Greece, Athens, Greece. And growing up in a very loving family as an only child, but always felt like something was off. And just didn't know how to handle that as a young boy. And especially in a society where the masculine man was the man who is very resilient, the man who doesn't express emotions, doesn't know how to actually handle, the pain and fear and all these negative emotions. So fast forward a few years later, I migrated in Australia, Melbourne, Australia. I fell in love and moved here to give it a go. Got married. Ended up having two beautiful girls, which now they are 21 and 19. Unfortunately, my marriage didn't succeed, but that's part of the journey. And looking back at it now, I wouldn't be the person that I am today if I was still in that marriage. So that was one of the pivotal points that um, led me into my own journey. Professionally, started as a nurse, as a registered nurse. I did my course back in Greece, in Athens. When I migrated here, fortunately, I wasn't recognized. So I had to do everything from scratch again. So going through working full time, trying to, support the family and at the same time studying full time and having two kids at the 5 years old. So that was a bit of a challenge. So the resilient man was just sort of, um, holding space for me back then. And then unfortunately things started going downhill very quickly. Grief struck our family with passing of a few family members, including my parents, within a period of 3 years. My marriage fell apart and I fell apart. Uh, Quite unwell. My mental health deteriorated significantly. I became suicidal. I'm quite depressed while I was still trying to function as a healthcare professional and a father, a husband. So basically lost control of everything. And addictions kicked in. Yeah, like I said, my marriage fell apart. Got into another relationship, hoping that that was gonna fix my issue, which unfortunately just made things worse because I wasn't ready, sort of to love anyone else because I didn't love myself at the time. And fast forward again, a couple of years after that, I sort of hit rock bottom. I managed to have a look within to find out what was happening inside of me and started peeling all the layers. And that process was very, very, very hard. It felt like I was opening Pandora's box and trying to understand the person that I was, the mistakes that I made, trying to understand the emotions and trying to forgive myself and find some way of actually accepting the shame, the guilt, and loving myself. So that's process sort of started. Managed to get off alcohol, cigarettes, started looking after myself, lost a fair bit of weight, exercising, and put a few things on my bucket list, which one was to hike in Nepal. So I started when I set a target like really high straight away. So I was a person who wasn't even able to walk 50 meters without getting short of breath. So I said, no, I'm going to start walking. I'm going to do 10,000 steps a day and I'm going to be walking towards Mount Everest base camp. That was the thought back then. And everyone was just like, oh my God, seriously, just that small. But now, very, yeah, very, I don't even know what was the word. I had no idea, but that actually pushed me. That really pushed me. Having my focus towards something that almost felt unattainable pushed me even harder. So last year I managed to do a massive hike, not Mount Everest, it was the Annapurna circuit, which was equally hard and ended up at almost 5,500 meters. I did one of the highest passes in the world. Challenged physically, obviously, but I was really challenged emotionally. Not just the realization, oh my God, I've done it, but it was like, okay, well, now what's next? What's happening here? Because I can't keep doing this and setting all these goals. So everything started coming together in professionally now as well. So started looking after myself, realizing that this is what I want to do with myself. And professionally, I started working with men. So as a registered nurse, I sort of started shifting outside sort of the Western medicine approach, which is very fixated, into something a bit more holistic. So I started working with men. I created my organization, the Men Spirit, which we basically what we do is we help men go through the same process that I did, starting by creating a safe container where men are actually able to express their emotions. Because I think that's the biggest step. Finding a way, finding that safety to open up. Because like I was saying before, us men, we really struggle with our emotions. So having that safe space is the initial step. And then what we do, obviously, depending, how people are progressing, we have coaching, we have workshops, and we guide men through this journey, the journey of self-exploration and healing. Yeah, this is a very long sort of what I'm doing.
No, it's great. It's great. Like I said, your story is so powerful because I truly believe that all too many men are afraid to express emotion. We historically have told men that you're the provider, you're the protector, you are the strong one. Uh, in the United States, we have a saying, you pull up your bootstraps and you get it done. It is when we have a woman or when we have a father who passes away or who is going off to war or the military or whatever, a lot of times people will tell their sons, you're the man of the house now. And that is a tremendous amount of stress and responsibility to put on a child. But it has become the norm in so many cultures that men are expected to be the strong ones, be the resilient ones, just push through the grief. If there's a death in the family, the man is the strong one. He's got to be there for his family, for his friends. And with friends, it's not always acceptable for a man to call their friend and say, hey, I'm hurting. Hey, I need help. Hey, I need someone to talk to. I'm struggling today. You mentioned addictions coming into the picture, and I'm not sure what they were, but we also our world as a whole almost celebrates the things that men tend to get addicted to, right? We celebrate porn, we celebrate sex. Like it's a good thing if you're having sex with a lot of people, right? Like that's a good thing for guys. It's like, oh, you're a manly man, right? We celebrate getting drunk and fraternity culture in colleges, especially in the US, of like, we're going to have a party and everybody's going to get drunk and the drunkest person is the winner. It's that mentality. And so we really push our boys towards these behaviors that could potentially be detrimental to their mental health and their physical health, but it's celebrated. And so what you're doing is you're breaking that wall down and saying it is okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to have feelings and talk about those feelings.
Exactly. I think you nailed it exactly. The issue is that we have all these, and I don't want to call it toxic behaviors, but all these unhealthy behaviors that they have been normalized by society, sometimes religion as well. And and we see the effect that it has on men, and especially on the mental health. And then we try to fix, let's say, for instance, addictions, okay, drug addictions. And we're trying to fix the drug addiction, um, but we're actually missing the point which is the trauma, the societal expectations that men are not able to handle that. So the actual problem is not the drug itself, it's what it represents for that man, what it actually gives. For myself, it was alcohol, it was online games, it was cigarettes, binge eating. All these things gave me something that I couldn't get from my normal life. I wasn't able to sort of find it within myself or within my loved ones. So it was the easy way out. Unfortunately, our mental health care approach and our society doesn't target that, and especially with men. So my purpose is to try and redefine that. Um, Not so much in a systemic approach, but more on the individual approach. So the man who's actually struggling emotionally to have a look within themselves and understand why they're actually using drugs, why they're watching porn all the time, what is happening, but not from a judgmental place, not from that critical point of view, because that will shut down. It will shut down everything. So it needs to come from that place of awareness and love and self-love. And that will obviously, it's not something that happens overnight. So when there is all this shame and guilt, again, created by a society, and it needs to sort of start working slowly and understanding, the role of the man, the role of, the self, how everything works together, and then put that in a context of our society and a sense of belonging, and who do we surround ourselves with. And that's again another thing. Like if we're gonna be surrounded by, the friends, the male friends who we can't have a deep and meaningful conversation. If we have a partner who is not able to understand us, and if we're working, like the three jobs because we have to sustain, the family, all these things work against us. So it's all these layers that we have to be really aware.
Yes, you touched on something and it rang so true to me. Like, I think you do have to come at it from a non judgmental, non critical frame of mind because I guarantee you the husband, the son that is struggling with his mental health has someone who is at home or at the workplace saying, I don't know why you can't stop. I don't know why you were doing this. I don't know what is wrong with you. And and I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. Like I get being in the other person's shoes of like, I just don't understand what's wrong with you. but I have been the addict and I have been the loved one of an addict. And so I know that no amount of berating them, of trying to force them, of pushing them away is going to help. It's just going to make them shut down, especially with men, because men are success centered, I believe. Like that they are driven, they want to be successful in whatever it is that they're trying to achieve, whether it's fatherhood, husbandhood, brotherhood, friendship, job, school. They want to be successful. Because if you think back to caveman days, the strongest survived.
Exactly, exactly.
And so, but when you step in as a helping professional to help them get sober or break free from the mindsets, whatever it is that they are trying to get free from, you do have to come at it from a compassionate, curiosity driven stance of like, let's get curious together and figure out what's at the root of it, because the root cause is what's driving this behavior. Is it a sense of loneliness? Is it a lack of understanding? Is it misalignment in your calling and your actual job? But until you deal with that root cause, you're just going to be putting a band aid on it. And oftentimes that band aid is alcohol, drugs, porn, shopping. Yeah, I thought so. You said binge eating, is that right? Binge eating was one, yes. And so when you said that, I was like, wait a second. He went from binge eater to wanting to go to base camp for Mount Everest, right?
Yep. Not just that.
Happened.
It's the awareness that I was saying before. It's initially there was a bit of guilt and shame. Like I have to admit that obviously, like it's not all hunky dory, but I was able to use that shame in for my own benefit. And I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this way. Why am I feeling this way? What can I do about it? And that created the energy and the purpose so I can actually start looking after myself again. And now from binge eating, like I'm doing 3 day fasting and I get, other men to join for cleansing, understanding, diet, how it affects and muscle and protein intake and all this stuff. Like it's just leading to something completely different. The main thing is that I feel much better about myself. I'm the healthiest that I've ever been. Like I'm 47 and I'm the healthiest that I've ever been ever in my life. Like, and it's amazing. And it's amazing. And the impact that it has on my mental health state as well. Like it's not just, going to the gym and having the muscles and then feeling, having that darkness inside of you. It's not going to help. You need that balance. You need that balance. So yeah, yeah.
I love that. I didn't want to like scoot past it because I think that's such a powerful transformation story of going from binge eating to now you are caring for your body and you're the healthiest that you've ever been. And it's not just you look good, it's I feel good too.
Exactly, exactly.
And I think men all too often, again, because of society and because of the world, we we have coined the term dad bod, dad.
Yes, yes.
And so you're either hot, sexy, desirable, or you have a dad bod.
Yep.
And that is so degrading for men. And it breaks my heart that we compartmentalize men so much. Like there are layers to men. And I think all too often we just see men as employees, workers, fill in the blank, but we don't stop and peel back the layers. And I think that's what you're helping men specifically do through your group work.
Exactly, exactly. And another thing that it just came up now is like looking after ourselves. Again, men traditionally, like we don't know how to look after ourselves, especially on the outside. Like, what's wrong putting sunscreen? What's wrong moisturizing? Like it's okay. Like it's okay. It's not a feminine thing. You're just sort of looking after that vessel. It's just a vessel, you know. That's all it is. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, it's not vain. You're not going through midlife crisis because you're going to the gym when you're 40. Like it's it's a normal process. You're looking after your body. That's all it is. It's not being selfish. It's self-love. There's a big difference in that.
Yes. And so since the last time we recorded, I have um one of my daughter's friends from her wrestling team, his father passed away of a stroke. And he was probably 3 years older than you. And everybody was shocked. And I told my husband, I said, I'm not really shocked because I when your kids are on the same wrestling team, you spend a lot of time together. Wrestling tournaments are all day, 13-hour events. You see what people eat, you see what people drink. We follow each other on Facebook. We live in a big city, but a small neighborhood. And so I always say it's almost like we live in a small town because everyone goes to the same restaurants. We all go to the same grocery stores. Like, it's a big city, but we live in a very small town feel neighborhood. And so I got to see this man a lot in his day-to-day life. And I told my husband, I said, unfortunately, I wasn't like, it doesn't shock me because I got to see kind of how he lived his life. And I'm like, I think all too many men are taking for granted their physical health. And they're acting like they're 18 years old and pizza at 2 a.m. is okay and fried chicken 3 times a week is okay and a hamburger for dinner every night is okay. And when we sit down and really, because we are both coaches, this is what we do. We are both holistic coaches. We look at it from, and I think the word holistic sometimes gets a bad connotation because people are like, "Oh, that's, new age, woo woo." And it's no, but the base of holistic is looking at yourself from a whole picture, right? Mind, body, soul, not just mental health, not just physical health, not just spiritual health, but the whole picture. And I think all too often people are focusing heavily on one and not enough on another. So they might be focusing on their social health or their spiritual health, but they're totally neglecting their physical health and their mental well being, or vice versa. It can be any combination. But I think that his passing really reminded me that there's not enough information out there for men to show them that there is another way to live.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And from a personal experience as well. So, about 11 years ago, my brother-in-law passed away, 51 years old, from a massive heart attack. And we had no idea. We had no idea, what he was experiencing physically and mentally. But this is a reminder of, like what you said, the holistic approach. You can be professionally, like having the money and being in a beautiful relationship. But if you're not looking after your body, it will catch up. Same thing the other way. If you have, your physical health, but spiritually and emotionally you're not there, this stress, the anxiety, the sadness accumulates in the body. Everything is stored in the body and eventually catches up with you. And there is also with men, the societal expectation that we were saying before. And especially as the providers, the masculine role where you have to provide and you keep working. You just have to keep working. And you hoping for the retirement, like that when, I don't know what's the age limit in the States, like here it's 65, when you 67, when you reach 67, you'll retire and then everything is going to be okay and your life starts. But you're not going to go to that, unfortunately. That's the reality. That's the reality. If you're working non-stop, not looking after yourself, physically and emotionally and spiritually, that's it. It's going to run dry sooner or later. And that's why we keep seeing more cases, of heart attacks and strokes, all the cardiovascular stuff, and then mental health as well, and suicidal rates as well, like amongst men, is so much higher than amongst women.
Yes, it's true. I work with a few men, and a few of them are in that transition phase where they're ready to retire. They're late 50s, early 60s, they are ready to transition, and they come to me because they're not taking care of themselves. They're drinking all the time. They are stressed beyond belief. Their stress level is at 100 all the time. They're not eating healthy. They're not sleeping right. All the things. And they just say, well, I want to build healthy habits before I go into retirement because I want to enjoy as many years as I can while I still can. And yes, I help them. But it would be so much better if it wasn't, oh, I'm going to retire, so now I need to start making changes. If we could intercept these men as 20, 30, 40-year olds and say, there is a different way to live, you can still be successful in your job without working 80 hours a week. You can still climb the ladder without neglecting your wife and kids or your partner and your kids. You can still do all these things while also taking care of yourself. But we've driven men down this success path of like work, work, work. And they wake up at 52 and have a stroke, a heart attack, a panic attack, and they think they're dying. And it's really just so much stress because, like you said, everything is stored in the body. And I don't think we educate people enough on that. And you, as a nurse, know the body. And as a mental health, holistic, all the things, right? What you do now, helping men, you understand how that works. But I don't know that it is common knowledge because I will even when I'm out with friends, they will say, oh my gosh, my hands have been bothering me so much. And I grab their hand and I start massaging, and I'm like, you carry your tension in your hands. And the fatty part between their thumb and their index finger is so tight and swollen. And they're like, what do you mean I carry my stress in my hands? I'm like, our stress goes somewhere. If you don't do something to get it out, it is going to be stored somewhere. And those things, we talk about them because we're girls, but I don't know how many men are sitting around saying, bro, my hands hurt. And another guy is like, are you carrying your stress in your hands?
Yeah, can you imagine that conversation? How it would go? Yeah, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And usually when men have this realization is because something is happening, unfortunately, whether it's going to be, a mental breakdown or a heart attack or a stroke or something, and they get a second chance in life. So they start seeing, that holistic. But why do you have to go through this process? And that's the thing. And I know very well because I did exactly the same thing. I had to go through, the rock bottom so I can actually start looking after myself. That's what I want to change. That's the narrative that I want to change. Yeah, and it can start from the schools. It can start from the family, from the parents. What are we teaching our boys? What are we teaching our boys? And I think there is a bit of a shift. I can sort of start seeing it over the last 20 years. There is a bit of a shift, and with the younger generation, their emotional intelligence is a little bit better. Is a little bit better. So they actually open up a little bit more. They do a bit of work, inner work, they reach out, they have the connections are a little bit different. I think there is a shift, but we're still decades before, there is that massive shift. And it's hard. It's so hard. And sometimes I don't know if you feel it as well, but I feel disheartened sometimes, like because I have the assumption, where I am, that there's so many men out there, but the reality is that the baseline is so low. It's so low. And when they come to me, and I really have to take a step back and take it from ground zero, really, and start building from the bottom, like the basic stuff, like really, really basic stuff. Like what do you want? Like even the simple things, like men don't even know. There's no zero awareness about what do they actually want. So you have to start from that and then start building, like all the complexities, where it's going to be around relationships, where there's previous trauma, upbringing, parents, and they're all, as fathers, as all this really complex psychosocial stuff, which up until that day, and it might be, in the late 60s, sometimes they had no idea about it because they thought, I'm going to work really hard, pay off my mortgage, and then go and retire and drink margaritas every day. Like, who does that? No one.
Yeah, it's true. We are seeing a shift. I feel that. I feel we are seeing a shift because and I started to see it with my daughter's generation. My daughter is a year younger than your youngest. She's 18. Um and I was having this conversation with someone the other day. They said they were saying that TikTok was a good thing because it's spreading messages of like self-care, self-awareness, um, trying to disband toxic masculinity and opening the doors for people to be okay with expressing their emotions and their feelings. And I said, that's TikTok now. When it first came out, though, and I don't know if you experienced this because I don't know how different TikTok is in other parts of the world versus the US because I know it can be very different. But when TikTok first came out, my daughter was about 10, 11 years old. And that was about the time that my husband and I gave her her first cell phone because we were traveling internationally that year a lot and we wanted to be able to get a hold of her. And so we gave her her own phone. And within a year, she was talking about things like self harm, eating disorders, sexual abuse, sexual assault. And she was 10, 11 years old. And so I was having these really tough conversations because TikTok was just people were using it as their own journal. They were just going on and spilling their guts about their trauma. And so you had children listening to this. And then as I shared earlier, my daughter was on the wrestling team. And so I took the photos of the wrestling team. And so I would often get pictures of our team, other people's, other teams that we were wrestling. But I was seeing all over, both boys and girls, cutting self-harm marks, scars, old scars from where they had been self-harming in the past. And it broke my heart because I remember when that was cool. It was trendy. Now we are seeing a shift to where that's not glamorized anymore. And TikTok and Facebook, really TikTok, Instagram, maybe. Each platform has its own purpose. But TikTok really has changed to where it is a place of like, let's support each other. Let's try to express our feelings. It is okay to like a sappy, sad TikTok post and reshare it. That it's okay now. So even just in the 8 years since my daughter was 10 to now, I have seen a shift on the way that we talk about mental health. And I've seen that shift with her guy friends too. And I'm seeing it in the way that we are parenting the children that are younger than them, because a lot of my friends are just now starting to have children. And I am seeing a shift in how my friends are parenting their little boys. And it is a lot more acceptable for them to ask their son, "What is bothering you? Like, what caused you to react that way?" Rather than just a spanking or go sit in the corner or you don't behave that way and that's it. Like now I am seeing people digging in deeper and especially with the little boys of like, "Hey, why did that bother you so much? What's going on? What was that temper tantrum about?" And so I think we are seeing a shift, but that doesn't change the fact that we have a generation of men who were never allowed to express their emotions.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And these men are the fathers of today. So they will continue the same cycle until that changes. And the reason is that I completely agree with you with social media and the whole approach. It's interesting. In Australia, there is a social media ban. So kids under 16 years old are not allowed to have an account with any of the social media platforms, which I think this is a bit of a knee-jerk reaction because just by isolating the kids, I don't think that sort of helps them. Um, and there needs to be some sort of filtering application within the social media platforms just to protect the kids from all the stuff, like what you were saying before, that they're not ready to be exposed. But everything starts from the family. Everything starts within the family because this is the primary environment for the young children. The role models, what are they exposed to? How much support do they have? So they can understand. They can understand the world and what's happening inside of them. So they need that ongoing support. But yeah, banning them from things and keeping them away, from all the bad stuff. It's not going to help because when they're going to become adults, they're going to be out there and they'll have zero idea. So what are they going to do? We're not building resilient, you know, adults. We're building adults that they grow up in a bubble and that bubble eventually will pop.
Yeah. Yeah. I get criticized a lot for the way that I've raised my daughter, but I that is the mentality that I have is I want to be the one to be there when she is experiencing certain things, when she has gone through something so that I can help her process and understand it. Because I don't want her to go out into the world and have to face some of these hard situations on her own as an adult when she is learning how to be an adult for the very first time. And I think I look at my brothers. I have 5 older brothers. I'm close to 3 of them. And my dad was very, very strict with them. You don't cry. You don't throw a fit. You don't talk back. You don't speak your mind. You just do what you're told and you keep on going. And so all of us, me included, we did not have conversations with our parents about the hard things. We didn't talk about things like that. We didn't express big emotions. It wasn't allowed. And so then you get out into the world and you're having to figure out how to do all that without any teaching or guidance from childhood. And so I know that you have a group, a platform where you are helping men process your emotions. So I know from last time, but I want you to tell us about it now.
Perfect. Okay, so we've got a few initiatives within the men's spirit, and one of them is every Monday. What we do, we have a WhatsApp group, and every Monday we will post 1 minute video of what's happening in our life, whether it's a challenge, whether it's a triumph. But that will actually get men in the space of sharing and opening up, and especially in front of a camera. So that makes it even harder. So going into that place of authenticity and vulnerability, because again, being vulnerable for us men, it's a big challenge. So that's been going on for a few months now. And it's been going quite well. Another thing that we do is we got our men's circle, which we do face to face monthly, and that container has been an eye opener for all of us. participate there, whether it's because men will disclose things that they haven't actually shared with anyone for decades, whether it's around trauma, stuff that's been holding them back. And it's so liberating from, the person who is actually sharing, but as a receiver as well, because you're realizing that you're not by yourself, that everyone is going through their own stuff. And in a group environment where there is no judgment and we hold space in a safe manner for everyone, it feels so good. It's very, very therapeutic. And the other thing that we're going to be doing as well, this is a new initiative. So we're going to be sort of shifting them face-to-face gatherings in an online container. But the structure that we're going to be having is that we're going to be doing it fortnightly. But basically how it's going to work is we're going to have two men during each session that they're going to be sharing whatever is happening in their life. And 15 minutes of uninterrupted space. Anything that might be surfacing, anything, that might be holding them back, whether it's going to be around addictions, whether it's going to be around trauma. Um, and another thing, yeah, so I'm just jumping to a different topic now, sexual trauma. The the amount of men that have experienced sexual trauma, it's unfortunately it's so underreported, and the more men are sort of opening up, the more comes on the surface. And yeah, we need to be able to find a way how to hold space for these men because they have no idea how to process this.
Yes.
So yes, so this is basically what I'm trying to offer in terms of sort of a community group environment, safe space, trauma-informed care space. But then obviously, I'm doing workshops online and face-to-face workshops, and then I work with men um, individually, one-on-one, because some men obviously, as you know as well, need that extra guidance and that support. So yeah, navigate all this stuff because it can be very, very overwhelming.
I love that you mentioned the sexual trauma because I actually wrote my first master's degree dissertation on that topic. It was, my thesis was basically something along the lines of are, um, are victims of familial, so family, sexual trauma more likely to end up in gangs, prostitution, or on drugs. And I was trying to do both men and women because I was interested in both. But my research on men was so limited because of the lack of disclosure.
Exactly.
And I found my findings were that if the victim, if the survivor, whichever word, um, but if the survivor was able to disclose and the disclosure was accepted positively, meaning they were given help, they were supported, they were believed, then they were less likely to end up on drugs, prostitution, or in gangs. But if they did not disclose, it was the same as if they had disclosed and had a negative response to their disclosure. And it broke my heart because all of the research that I saw was like men are being sexually traumatized, but they are not disclosing it.
Exactly, exactly. And it's a very sensitive topic, not just because men are not disclosing it, because we don't want to take away from what's happening with women, because there's that polarity as well. Like, oh, if we're going to focus on men, what about women? It's about human beings experiencing this. And we need to see it in that holistic approach as well. And that will help men as well. Because again, we're going against the narrative of that masculine role, or you've been hurt, you've been traumatized, suck it up, you're going to be okay. You need to be there for the woman, because she doesn't know how to handle this. So there is again that polarity within the feminine and masculine energy that we need somehow to reinvent. We need to change even the language that we use. But again, that process is a very, very, very slow process, and it needs to be in a way where men and women both feel safe.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing where emotionally and physically you feel safe. So you can actually open up and start doing the work because it's that pivotal point where what you said before, if this happens, then that's your path. But if this doesn't happen, your path will be completely different. That's where we need to change and really target our approach.
Yes. Yeah. It's that. And I talk about it with addictions too. I say, look, if we can intercept the child in the aftermath of the trauma or the neglect or the abuse or the whatever, the traumatic experience, fill in the blank, whatever it is, if we can intercede right there and get them the help that they need, help them process the emotions, then there is no need further down the line for a drug counselor, for a substance use treatment center, because that child has processed their emotions associated with the event that is affecting them, and then they aren't going to need to recover from drugs or alcohol or shopping or binge eating or whatever, fill in the blank, because they will have learned healthy coping mechanisms
Exactly.
as a child, and they will be able to carry those on. But until then, we have to, and this is what I tell people, my dream is to have some sort of intervention program where we intervene at that pivotal point and help them right then. But until then, we still have a big fight ahead of us to help the people who are already struggling. The 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old men and women who are struggling because that intervention wasn't there on for them when they were a
Yes.
child. And so I think we both have the same passion of targeting the root cause before it even gets to where you need us as we are now.
Exactly. Yes, yes, yes. And as Gabo Mate, I don't know if you know Gabo Mate, the physician who talks about trauma, it's the issue with trauma is not the actual event, it's what happens after, whether the supports are there. So that's what we need to do. That's what we need to focus. And it's the same approach, within Western medicine as well. Like we tend to focus on the symptom instead of the actual cause. It's exactly the same thing. Why this is happening? What can we do about it so it doesn't happen again? It's as simple as that, really. But we need to change the whole policy framework. That's because it's always symptom management focused. So we need to change that narrative.
Oh my goodness. See, we redid it. We did it. We
Got it. It's ready. It's here.
I know. I love it. Where can everybody find you? If they want to interact with you, join your group, whatever it is, where can they find you?
So the Main Spirit, then mainspirit.com, and we're on all social media platforms, and including WhatsApp as well. So we got them a group. So if you want, just send me a text message, send me an email, whatever, all the platforms, and I'll get you connected with our community, which is growing very quickly, which is very, very exciting.
That is exciting. Well, thank you for being on today. I truly appreciate it, and I'm so glad that they're actually going to get to hear it.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yes, okay, everyone. Until next week, be well, be kind, and may you find some joy this week. Bye.